record. So if you remember last week, we did the site links training talking about, getting search engine results with, sub results. So basically that Google puts together site link groupings based on semantically related content. You can show up in the search engine results page with more results if you optimize your site for site linking, which includes things like site structure, user experience, URL, site mapping, and then just the actual inherent quality or lack thereof, right, of content is kind of ways that you do or do not influence Google to award you with that. So we went through lots of examples and things. I'm jumping right in today because I have quite kind of a robust plan for us that involves a lot of interaction. Individualists. Cass will always interact because she's a loyalist. And she knows that it affirms me to do so. So, so we'll dive in today. The good news is this is actually an area that Lindsay is very well versed in. So maybe we'll just make her talk and then we'll have a great time learning. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is internal linking. So we're basically going to spend the next, 2 weeks after this one, talking about the different types of links that are actually on your site itself. And then we're going to get into the links that are off your site, which has to do with backlinking. Okay. And we'll talk about a lot of things in that. But what I want to talk about today is, internal linking. And essentially I like to think of internal links, in 3 ways, right? So you kind of have 3 possible strategies that you can use asynchronously to implement internal links. The first is site-wide. So across your entire website, you have internal links that are pointing to different pages in strategic ways, and they're supporting your ability to rank and search. I'm going to give you a high-level overview of all these 3 types, and then we're actually going to dive into each one and do some exercises and stuff, okay? So you just get your hands on it and wrap your head around it. The second is linking within a topical area. So for instance, if you have a website that has specific products, okay, and those products meet a specific solution, you would potentially want to interlink the pages of related products to each other so that it creates a little bit of stickiness and that it is helpful to kind of nudge the user along a specific journey and all of that, okay? So those are just kind of topical areas that are related to each other. And then the third is within a topic cluster, which is kind of like the hallmark SEO strategy that we all use for on-page content that helps you create larger pieces, larger bodies of work that are interrelated, not just semantically, but through linking. And internal linking is a huge part of the reason why topic clusters work. And it's a huge and important way that we do them effectively. Okay. So those are kind of the 3 things we're going to talk through. So I'm going to start with, so this is kind of the plan today. I'm going to start with site-wide internal linking as a concept, and then we're going to actually talk about the types of internal links and practice doing them for a minute so you kind of understand all the different types. We got into it a very little bit at the end of our training last week where we kind of talked about anchor link text and things. We're going to go and actually practice some of those today. And then, a couple other exercises and things like that. So first of all, I wanted to just literally copy and paste from Google what site-wide internal linking, why do we care? Okay. Site-wide internal linking is less about relating semantically related content. It's less about the content and more about the user experience. We know that user experience and how easy a site is to navigate is important to SEO. Why? Why would it be important to SEO that somebody can get around your site? If the Google bots can do it, who cares, right? It's not a rhetorical question. I'm on your website. Yeah. Keep them on your website. What about schema? So we tend to think that any bot reading our website is omniscient, capable of handling complex thoughts, etc., right? Able to make logical connections or leaps. Not so, right? So this is one of the reasons that we discourage people from subdomaining themselves to death, because you can do that, right? Or internationalizing themselves to death, because if you have .us, .uk, .eu, right? You create a lot of problems within the structures of a website and then all of the folders that are part of your schema. Okay. And if you don't have a logical order to those and an informational design in place, the Google bots don't actually know in what order to crawl your site. And they're only going to spend so much time on it. So you're going to end up with a really random and haphazard kind of coverage from an indexing perspective. And we know that crawlability and indexing are Google ranking factors. Okay. So we can trace logically the idea of using internal linking wisely for UX and SEO back to actual Google ranking factors. Okay. So not only is this important just to make people's lives easy, not only is it important to make the Google bots' lives easy, right? Or to prioritize what you want them to look at, it's important because it will actually affect your ranking at the end of the day. Okay. All right. So for instance, yeah, we already talked about this, like hamburger menus, navigation links, things like that. A scenario that Google puts out is, I think, an interesting one. Basically, like a user experience that we often do not think about in terms of link structure or site mapping, but thinking about when every single website, every single URL on your website could conceivably be an entry point for somebody. So we like to think that if we like create this really ordered sitemap and this like, okay, as long as the homepage is cool and people from the homepage can figure out what our products and services are, cool, right? Because statistically speaking, 80% of the people are going to come to our homepage first. The problem is the 20% of the other people have landed somewhere else on the planet. And if there are no flags and there are no road signs and there are no roads, like how are they supposed to find what you want them to find, right? So it's just very important to have an intelligent process for this. And your actual navigation menus don't always solve every problem, okay? Because people get lost in a page itself. And even we're so conditioned to see the sticky navigation menu, we forget it exists. And we have data to prove this, like Hotjar data, to watch people on a website trying to find a page that's right there in the navigation, and they won't go to it because they don't remember that it exists, right? They're somewhere lost on the page and then they bounce because they can't figure it out. So all of that to say, internal linking is a way to ensure that no matter where somebody comes into the website, they're going down a fairly predictable path to go from related idea to hopefully a point of conversion, be it on your contact page or a form on the page. Okay. So just thinking about that, we call them breadcrumbs in the URL structure, but and I'll just mention too, obviously I'm very passionate about this, but like it's an accessibility thing too. So if you have somebody on your site who has limited cognitive ability, or you have somebody on your site who's using a screen reader, like where did you come from? Where did you go? Right. So I repeat that often, but that has to be part of what we think about when we're putting linking in place and when we're formatting a website as a whole. Okay. So the first exercise we're going to go through today, and I'm not going to make you type into this because I feel like engagement is perhaps not optimal when we do it that way. So I'm going to type into it and we're just going to talk. Okay. So what I did here is I pulled out a sitemap, a very simple sitemap that we created for a company. Okay. And what the structure of the website, I'll just like talk you through it. And then we're going to talk through like site-wide, where would you put interlinks, right? Like what pages would you link to each other? So you can assume safely that it would be a little silly to link every single page in your sitemap from your home page, right? Like every single word would be hyperlinked. Like that's not an intelligent thing to do, right? So obviously we have to be judicious in thinking about where strategically is the best place to put internal links site-wide. So we've got our homepage. We have Y NRWC, which is the name of the company. It's very, very cool. They do I'll show you actually. They do re-entry. So people who have been, we call them justice impacted individuals. So people who have been incarcerated. And basically they support the companies who work in equity for the workforce field for these individuals, right? So this is really cool. My friend Jason's the owner of it. So they have YNRWC, they have About Us, they have Who We Serve as subpages. Now, I actually haven't looked at this to make sure this is still the way it is, but I think it is. So close enough anyway. They have credentialing, which is a service that they offer for organizations that are supporting justice impacted individuals. They have news and events. They have supporters, so like sponsors, okay, membership, login. And then in the footer, we have blog, contact us. And then we have a landing page for a huge annual conference that they do. So carte blanche, what would be an intelligent way to insert internal links? Let's start with the homepage. What internal links in the text do you think you should put somewhere in the homepage?
Probably to membership, right?
Yep, good. There's one other one I would put.
Put the conference in there.
Yep, good. That's it. So we know that especially important, right? Because it's non-nav. So very important that front and center would be a link somewhere to the conference. And that's probably good, right? And if somebody hits the homepage, if they're going to go further, they already have something in mind, right? They're not really discovering. There's usually a brand, it's a branded key phrase they came in on, blah, blah, blah. All right, so why NRWC? Are there any pages that we would link to on that page?
Probably supporters, but I don't know what supporters we're referencing, like organizations that support their mission, or what does that look like? I guess
like sponsors. Yep.
Yeah,
so I would absolutely include that.
And then probably the credentialing too. I mean, that's a differentiator, right? Like that's.
Okay. On the About Us page, what would you do? What would you internally link to?
News and events, maybe.
I'd probably have a graphic CTA for it. And that might be it. Yeah. All right. Who we serve?
I think credentialing falls into that again.
Yep.
How we serve them too.
And then I would probably say supporters and membership would probably be worth having interlinked here, because if you think about it, somebody's trying to self-diagnose, like, okay, do you work with like, what's the psychology behind clicking on that button? Do you work with companies like mine? Or do you work with people like me? Right. So that page needs to answer that question. That's always a good way to justify the content of a page. Like, are you answering the question the page title is asking? Right. Which is like, if you have an About Us page, you better tell people about yourself. So who we serve, you list that and then probably have those opportunities. Good. Okay. And so on. Okay. So we don't have to go through the entire sitemap, but I just wanted you to start thinking that way. And honestly, this is not as much of an ongoing task, right? This is more like optimization projects, and site launches, site relaunches, rebrands, things like that. Or if you add a whole bunch of new pages, change the sitemap. So this is less of a kind of ongoing project. So we're going to spend a little bit less time on it because there's a lot more that we want to get through. I'll send you this as a follow-up, but essentially, most of any template that you use that has been built by somebody, you will have RFs and like different coded elements built in. So you shouldn't really have to worry about that. Obviously, also remember that Sitemap submission is a thing, right? That you have to do. Otherwise, Google doesn't know your site exists. And it shouldn't be a substitute, right? You still have to create a crawlable link architecture, which is why you want to address things like schema or whatever. So we'll talk in a second about how to actually like evaluate a website to see if Google, like to see what links Google is reading on each page, because that's a data point that's very easy to find. But that's that. Okay. Writing anchor text. Since the majority of us on this call are writers, it's very important to me that you guys know how to do this well. Google has some pretty specific standards for what is not good anchor link text, including things like click here, read more, website, article, right? Things that are not specific enough to make it make sense. So Google always wants you to really do a pretty basic, pretty standard, include some form of the key phrase that it's in the destination, and usually no more than 4 words. Okay. So every so often people, writers or whatever get a little lazy and they kind of run into the habit of like not really reading the external link, right? Like you're choosing, or we're talking about internal link, sorry. even not reading the internal link. So you're like choosing a link based on semantics and not content. So you don't really like take the time to know what the destination you're linking to is about. And so it becomes hard to summarize it in an anchor link text because you don't actually know what the page is about. You're just linking to it because you know strategically you should. Okay. Then you end up going too long because you're like guessing like what the destination content is about. So honestly, most of the time when I see that, I'm just like, that was a little bit lazy. I won't say that, but I'll just kindly say, hey, let's try to keep this over 3 or 4 words and make sure you take a second to scan the destination article. So you should always be able to, shrink it pretty easily. So you want to stay as concise as possible. You don't want to do keyword stuffing. That's obviously a violation, all those kind of things. And then, we used to do this 10, 15 years ago, where you just have a list of links. People still, ChatGPT will do this for you all the time. It will give you, if you tell it to put external links in an article, it'll just bunch those links at the end of an article. Don't do that. Like that's a very bad thing to do. You don't want them, be it internal or external. You don't want those. You want the links to be naturally in the article. So just again, like use common sense. Think about as somebody's reading, if there is something that would spark them that either merits clarification. Like I like to think of interlinks as like footnotes. Like if it merits clarification, if you have additional content that would help someone go deeper, if you have related content that would help someone shop more intelligently for your product or solution, like think logically about what's truly helpful to somebody. Because if all you're doing is cramming it, you're going to get artificial and you're going to start reaching for things that don't really make sense, that are just kind of, I even do it. I mean, when I get lazy, I just kind of, I'm linking, I'm using the key phrase, whatever. You just have to kind of keep tuned into what the user would actually click on and what they would actually want to see. All right. Types of anchor link text. So I'm going to, let's vary who's reading these so that we can not listen to me the whole time. And then we'll do a little exercise where we practice writing all these kinds. Who has the screen nice and big? Face in the car. Sanders, you want to read exact match anchor text? These are like Dr. Seuss rhymes.
Exact match anchor text. This type of anchor text uses the exact keyword or key phrase that the linked page is targeting. For example, if the target page is about blue widgets, the anchor text might be blue widgets. While it can provide SEO benefits when used sparingly, overuse can lead to penalties for keyword stuffing.
Good. All right, who wants to read partial match anchor text? Angela?
Partial match anchor text contains a portion of the target keyword or key phrase rather than the exact match. For instance, if the target keyword is best running shoes, the anchor text could be top rated running shoes.
So that's kind of a thesaurus play. All right. Who wants to cast? Is your screen big enough? Do you want to read branded anchor text?
Yep.
Thanks.
Branded anchor text. Branded anchor text uses the name of a brand or company as the link. For example, if linking to Nike's website, the anchor text might be Nike. It helps reinforce brand identity and is generally considered safe for SEO.
Okay. Christine, are you a read alouder?
Sure.
Okay, you want to do generic?
Yep. Generic anchor text. Generic anchor text is non-descriptive and often uses common words like click here, read more, or learn more. While it may not provide specific keyword relevance, it can be useful for user experience and link diversity.
So we know Google wants those things very sparingly, but they can be okay sometimes. All right, I'll read naked URL anchor text. And then Katie, if you want to read image anchor text, I'll give you a second to prepare. All right, naked URL anchor text consists of the full website address, such as www.example.com. This type of anchor text is simple, but may lack context for both users and search engines. And then Katie, do you want to read image anchor text?
Sure.
Thanks.
Image anchor text. This anchor text is associated with an image link, typically using the image's alt attribute as the anchor text. Alt text should describe the image content and is essential for accessibility and SEO.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Sanders, do you want to do long tail anchor text?
Long tail anchor text contains longer and more specific phrases, often targeting niche keywords. For example, if the target is healthy vegan recipes, the anchor text might be delicious and nutritious vegan recipes for weight loss. It can help attract highly relevant traffic.
Good. As long as it's not too long tail, right? All right. LSI or latent semantic indexing anchor text. Angela, you want to read this one?
Yeah. Latent semantic indexing anchor text. LSI anchor text uses semantically related terms to the target keyword, helping search engines understand the context better. For instance, if the target keyword is smartphones, LSI anchor text would include terms like mobile devices or cell phones.
Good. And that's probably the one that like skilled SEO writers use the most. There's a couple other kinds that are far less common. So first is co-citation anchor text. You can read all these when I send this to you. Brand plus keyword anchor text, which is like, you know, New Balance running shoes, Nike running shoes, whatever. And then exact match domain. So, you know, we're in a weird spot at HireWriter because like our business name is like also a phrase. It's also random. But like when we use the word HireWriter.us, like that's technically an exact match domain, but like HireWriter is also a phrase, yeah, whatever. So we're kind of, sometimes we go there and it's not really on purpose. And then no text anchor. So this is actually pretty important when you're thinking about diversifying SERP features and creating more versions of things that you can rank for, like multimedia content, right? Like infographics and things like that. There can be hyperlinks in these assets that themselves can be interlinks through your site. And Google often uses the surrounding content. So just like how when a website doesn't have, or a web page doesn't have a meta description, Google will generate a meta description based on what that web page is about. It'll do the same thing if you don't add alt attributes to multimedia assets, in which case you have a no text anchor situation, which is a bad idea because Google doesn't like to work and you don't want to make it work, right? You want to control what it does. So let's give it a go. I think the best way to practice these is just to actually write them. So let's start with, and we may have to look back at the definitions if we're not immediately remembering everything. So let's start here and think of linking something. So let's do anchor link text for like from a URL to a contact page. So if we were linking anywhere on our website to our contact page, what kind of exact match? Here, we could pull this back up. So we'll go through this a bunch of times so that we've got it memorized. Hold on, here we go. So the exact keyword or key phrase. So let's say the page is called contact. So what would your anchor link text be if it was an exact match?
Contact. This feels like a smart alecky answer.
It's literally contact. That's it. That's the whole thing. Exact match. Okay. Partial match. Okay. So if we have partial match anchor text contains one of the target keyword or key phrase. So give me an example of what anchor link text would be in that case.
Like contact us today.
Yep.
Contact us, yeah.
Good. All right. What about branded?
Could it be like the phrase contact HireWriter, but instead of linking contact, it would just be HireWriter? Okay.
So it would be exactly that. The sentence itself would be contact HireWriter, but the words HireWriter would be the only ones linked to the contact page. Okay. All right. Generic. Could literally use anything.
Here to schedule a call.
Yep. All right. What would naked be? Sorry, I can't scroll.
The old WW.
Yep. Okay. And then an image obviously would have something like a picture of a phone or a picture of a form or a picture of a star, whatever. Okay. So this would just literally be an image. What about a long tail? So going back here, long tail anchor text contains longer specific phrases.
Like, don't delay, contact us today.
No.
I feel like I've been doing this, like, I'm doing all these buttons for our website right now.
Didn't we do a whole training on buttons?
Yeah, that was the most fun.
That was the most fun. You guys came up with the weirdest stuff. Okay. LSIs. My fave. So this would be like, let's jam. Or let's make your dreams come true. Or start building. Oh, not a garant. Blah, blah, blah. So I would, it depends on where you'd go, but I would tie it to the nature of the business, right? Like Christine and Katie, like solve your accounting challenges today. Well,
I have a question.
what's up?
What's the big difference between a generic and an LSI?
Yeah, generic is usually, so how Google defines it is that generic is non-descriptive. LSIs are usually descriptive. So it would be something like build your business with us. It would be like hire a master writer or book a preliminary consultation if it was a consulting firm, or connect with our accounting
But
team.
click here to schedule a call would be generic.
Yeah. So click here to schedule a call is missing any keywords of any kind. Like that could apply to any business. So an LSI would have peppered in it something that relates to the company. Right. So if it was a Smucker's Let's Jam would make sense. Right. So that was a terrible example to give you because it looks just like a generic one. I now realized. But the idea is that there's some key phrase in it.
Okay,
So there's
makes sense.
inherent SEO value. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. So let's try to do it again without looking at what they are. And let's do this. So let's say we wrote a pillar page. So a long form, the ultimate guide to technical SEO. And we've got lots of other content on our website, and we want to interlink throughout our website or throughout topically related content to that pillar page. And let's say this is called the ultimate guide to SEO or to technical SEO. Okay. So let's start at the beginning and go through those types again. So exact match would be what?
The ultimate guide to technical SEO.
Yep. All right. A partial match.
Technical SEO guide.
Good. All right. Branded.
Hire a writer.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
SEO.
Generic.
Download this guide.
Or even like download now or read now. All right. Naked would be the actual URL. Image would be anytime you have the cover photo anywhere on your website, you hyperlink over that cover or over that, the photo of the cover of the asset. Okay. Long tail.
Maybe something like explore our ultimate guide to technical SEO today.
One of the things I'll mention with long tail is, it's important to remember, like, these can be niche key phrases. So one of the things that you could conceivably do is have this be like the guide to technical SEO for marketers or the guide to technical SEO for developers, or like niche down a little further, either with audience, or it could be like the guide to troubleshooting technical SEO, like use qualifying phrases to get a little more clear about the asset itself. So in long tail, you can kind of add a little additional messaging that helps build predictability into what that click is going to produce for somebody. All right, and then LSIs.
Ways to improve your SERP results. I don't know. Or ways to improve your website SERP.
That's good. Okay. Good job. All right. I think we'll leave the last one off because I want to practice some other things in a minute, but that is good for you to get familiar with, because one of the things that you need to gut check is that you're not doing any one of these in isolation, that there's a variety represented. Okay. Because, and to be fair, like how many times you can do a naked URL? Probably not that many, but one of the ways people get around it is putting it in the footer. Okay. Creating alternate footers for different pages on the website. So for instance, if you have a taxonomy where your blog is categorized in 8 different ways, you create alternate versions of your footer based on the product line or based on the service or solution that that page is about, or that that category is about. And then like every blog in that category would have a unique footer that has the naked URL of that product page or something. Okay. So you can kind of think through ways to insert so that you're kind of representing every possible version of internal linking. And one of the beautiful things about that, then it makes it easier for Google to understand the bundles of content. So things that are topically related. So this entire conversation was about this part of it was about topical coverage. Okay. So we talked about site-wide. Now we're really talking about, the types of anchor link text and then how you implement those in topics throughout your site. Okay. So I got a little ahead of myself. Sorry. All right. So internal linking on the topical level. So the last 2 sections we're going to talk about are topical as a concept and then topic clusters as an actual tactic. Okay. So first, what I got ahead of myself explaining was that your website should have categorizations of content. Unless you have a 6-page website, you have categories of content related to industries you serve, related to product lines, related to methodologies that you purport, whatever it may be. There are going to be categorizations of content. And so one of the ways that you figure out how to build clusters of well-linked content for topically related articles or assets is very simple, right? Pretty much just use the internal site search and figure out, as long as you've set it up correctly. I'll show you our structure because it's vast and I think fairly well done. But basically what we decided obviously was to go and create multiple blogs, right? So we have 7 different blogs that have 7 different URL structures that all have different tags that we use. They're color coded. They have their own asset style, all the things, right? I think I went through this last week. The idea behind this is that it becomes very easy for Google to understand the 7 big things we talk about. And so when I group things that way, I weight the internal linking structure basically 75% in the topic itself, right? So like, for instance, every single one of our blogs probably has 3 to, how many, Lindsay? Like 3 to 5 maybe internal links. Yeah. I would say out of those, probably 3 to 4 are to other articles within the same topic, because those are the things that are going to be most helpful to somebody who's reading it, right? So if you're reading about angst and how to write angst, you want to read more about what? Character development, storytelling techniques, narrative arcs, character transformation, character flaws, okay, whatever, right? Like you're thinking about those would be helpful things for you to also learn. So that's a very logical, like user-centric way to think about topical linking. And I weight it that way because it's useful to the user. But I also don't do it exclusively because I also want to make sure that there's an opportunity for them to discover something new on our website. Because it may be that somebody, and for instance, we have two very, very close categories. We have storytelling and creative writing. We break those up because creative writing is bonkersville, and we talk about like surrealism and random crap. So we have them pretty separate, but they are related, right? And a lot of times people who are interested in storytelling content are going to be interested in creative writing content. So it makes good sense, even though the URL structure is quite different, to bridge those concepts through interlinking and just give them a little bit of stickiness. Okay. And then obviously we'll often link from the blog directly to the homepage, or from the blog directly to the contact page, or one of our services pages, or all those things. All right. So it's just one of those, you think about, okay, what are the topical areas on a website? And then how much in my kind of internal linking strategy, how much am I providing related content that the user is going to find also useful? And then how much am I supporting discovery by pushing the user into other areas of my website? All right. So that's just kind of the general philosophy behind what I'm explaining here. And the actual tactics of it are using internal sites. So internal site search. So as long as you have, I mean, I almost think any modern website probably has a good enough search feature to pull this off. So for instance, if I'm looking at trying to find good internal links for this blog, fostering authenticity and marketing during times of social unrest. My gosh, that's heavy. Did you do that, Lindsay? No? Do you do it, Sanders? Oh, Emma. Okay. So if I was interested in that, the key phrase that sticks out to me that I've probably written about before, that isn't just marketing, which is a useless thing to Google on a blog that has, I mean, on a website that has hundreds of marketing blogs, is the word authenticity. So what I would do is I would go to the site search, type in the word authenticity, and then I would see what else we've got on authenticity. Okay. So then I would start to open these links. That's it. That's the main one. That wouldn't have come up, obviously. And it looks like we only have a couple blogs that are actually called authenticity, that actually have that word in the H1. User experience and monetization. Okay. So then what I would do, and I mean, the nice thing is because our blogs have this taxonomy to them, I don't have to search to figure out what blog category this is in. I can just look at the URL and I know this is a business blog. I could also look at the art style because WPAP is business. That's also business. So personalization and marketing. And that is social media. That doesn't look very anime, but it is social media. All right. So these would be good candidates, right? So the source blog was a business blog. So both of these would probably be good candidates because my website turned up that they had the word authenticity in them. Okay. And at least this one has the word authenticity in the H1. So I would take that URL, I would take this URL, and then this one would be good because it's conceptually or topically related to the idea of authenticity in marketing. And it's in a different section of my blog. So if for this one, I was saying, okay, I'm going to do 3 internal links because it's a short one or whatever, I would say, great. Those are the 2 that I'll link in somewhere from the business blog. Then I'll link this one as a 3rd one into the social media blog, because this would be helpful for people understanding how the user experience and monetization, and, you know, so it's kind of ethical. It's kind of this, that. All right. So don't overcomplicate what you have to do to create an internal linking structure as you're just casually staging and optimizing and staging blogs. The other option, obviously, is to do the thing that Lindsay did and does very well, which is, I think I showed you this last week, which is to go a lot more in depth. So
I'm still drooling over this.
I know Lindsay's
Like I am drooling over
maven.
this. So cool.
She's very organized. Where is she? I can't see her. So Lindsay, do you want to talk us through how you put this together?
Honestly, this was like my first time doing this kind of thing, so I didn't even know if this is the right way or like the most optimal way, but basically I think I knew about what the parent page was beforehand, so I put that one at the top, and then I just used like Google search because I don't think Aero Oasis had a site search, so I used Google search where you just do like site and then you search
within
like
the site.
specific words. And then so I would search like black mold, and then I opened all those blog links, and like I know they have a couple sales pages focused on mold. So I opened all of those and like dumped them into the spreadsheet, found all the supporting blogs for the parent like topic cluster, and then pasted them all as pages, and then kind of went through one by one and looked at like what links were already anchored into the blog, and then like which ones should be added, and then kind of reviewed it a couple times, and then went in and did the changes. So I don't know, it took a while, but I don't know if there's like an easier way to do it, but this is what worked for me.
So, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness always, and how, you always do such a meticulous job with things like this. One of the things that, I'm quite keen on is manual effort, because at the end of the day, handling something is going to help you learn more about it than you could possibly learn by automating it. So if you had run a Python code to extract all of this and generated a spreadsheet for it in 5 minutes, all of the knowledge you gained about the nature of this content, the actual structure of the content, what concepts are covered, all of that knowledge wouldn't be held anywhere. And because you did it manually, that knowledge is held in your brain, which is useful, right? Because the next time the client comes and wants to put black mold in the black mold pieces, wants to put black mold in the editorial, we're going to spray them with bleach. But we're going to tell them, okay, we already covered this kind of conceptually. That might be a good optimization opportunity or whatever. So there's a huge risk of information design, linking structure at scale, to think that faster is better. But sometimes going slow through the content actually enriches your ability to make strategic recommendations. Because I think there's even a case to be made for where, right? Like, you never put a link in the first 2 sentences of something, because you don't want to drive people off before they've bought into what you're talking about, right? Like, you want to wait until after the first header usually to put in your links. You don't want to put external links in the first paragraph ever, because you don't want to drive them off the site, blah, blah, blah. So I just think memorizing so many of the multidimensional aspects of what makes somebody really good at linking strategy really does require you to do the reps. And I know you guys don't always love the fact that I'm into you guys doing the reps, but sometimes just sitting, doing the boring thing over drills it into your head so that it becomes familiar, and you're playing piano with your eyes closed, right? You just gain the instincts because you've seen it so many times. And sure, AI is a great pattern detector, but at the end of the day, we're the ones who connect dots that don't logically connect, right? And happen upon something that is truly unique. So
I had one question about that.
Sure.
I don't know when I came across this, but isn't it kind of best practices to not put too many internal links inside of one page? I kind of was like doubting that while doing this. I was like, this is a lot of links.
Yeah, this is a lot of links.
Especially the parent. I was like, I don't know if this is going to even like help or hinder the ranking. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you say that, because I literally have a note right here.
Yeah.
So there will be times when you feel strongly that in order to strengthen the interconnectivity of conceptual coverage on a website, you need to add a significant number of internal links. That may mean you need to increase the word count. There is no exact science for it but loosely, I would say like 1,000-word article can bear 5 internal links. I don't think it can bear much more than that without it being link spamming or problematic, right? Part of why we did anchor link text before we talked about this, because that matters, that there's a variety of that, first of all. But then second of all, yeah, the oversaturation is not a good thing. And if we need to write more words for any of those pages for our Oasis, let me know.
Maybe the parent page.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can get Megan to do it if Angela doesn't have time. Okay. The other way, so this is actually what Lindsay did, which you can find ranking pages, but what she did was actually better, which is use the site search function on Google. And if you don't have the training on that, let me know and I can send it to you. But basically you can search a single website using Google's search engine and only search from that website. And that will enable you to get content faster. The good news of that is the results will be organized in order of how Google would probably rank them, because it's giving you semantic results. Okay, so that's kind of gives you a clue, but you can also find that data out other places. Okay, the last section we're going to talk about is internal linking in a topic cluster. So as you know, topic cluster is still probably the best way to do SEO. It's the best way to create SEO content. You create clusters of semantically related work. Let me find our HubSpot really quick. And one of the cool things is that HubSpot, which is probably the CMS most people are using these days, has some nice tools for visualizing topic clusters, which kind of help clients who like have no idea what a topic cluster is and they won't sit through the training. It helps them just like see it really quick. And then you're like, see, this is legitimate. We promise. Even HubSpot thinks so. So basically what you do is you have this tab in HubSpot that generates this report. When you go through a topic cluster, you link your pillar in the middle with the key phrase that you want it to rank for. And then you create all of your subtopic blogs, picking the key phrase and then the URL of the published blog. And then you link them. So this link is actually broken, but I haven't looked at this site in a long time. But basically when they're interlinked, so linked reciprocally, you will get a green line. Okay. So that's just like a nice tidy way to kind of visualize how you would do linking. Linking is a huge part of interlinking is a huge part of topic cluster strategies. So let's just kind of practice for a second. So we all do these all the time. Most of us do these all the time. So I put together a topic cluster that we actually just did for somebody, the ultimate guide to impact windows in South Florida. So one of the ways that we organize pillars to begin with is we basically take all the subtopics that we're going to write about, and then we use those as H2s throughout the body of the pillar so that you have it will be very natural to interlink to all the articles. So talk me through what needs to be in the pillar.
All of the other blogs.
Yes, exactly. Right. So that would have all of these. All right. And then where does the pillar need to be?
I like using them as CTAs in all the other blogs.
Yep.
That makes my life so much easier.
That after the first paragraph italicized one.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny little number.
Or sometimes I'll use, like with Modus, I'll use the we just do like CTA images for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll have like the long title of Read the Ultimate Guide to Impact Windows in South Florida, like linked right there.
Yep.
Easy day.
Okay. All right. So if we have, so that's the obvious part, right? Every piece needs to be linked from the pillar. Every piece needs to be linked to the pillar. Then you get into a little bit more of an editorial decision, right? About interlinking the pieces to each other. So I'm going to zoom out just a little. Hopefully it doesn't bum you guys out from what you can see perspective, but it's too big and I want to be able to see it all at once. Can we see it all at once? Yeah. No, storm windows. Okay. So FAQ, what other of these would I link to in the FAQs probably? So my thought process would be, what's going to be hard to link anywhere else? Because your FAQ is your kitchen sink. FAQ can talk about all kinds of off-topic random crap, right? You can get all your long tail variations. So which of these would be really hard to naturally link in another article? Because this will make you sound like a douchebag if you link it exactly, right? It's going to diminish the educational value of what you write. So I would probably say that's something you could get away with linking in that. I promise I won't keep answering my own questions. All right, next, impact windows and hurricanes. Which of these would make sense to link?
Probably storm windows.
Storm windows, yeah. Be very logical, right? And somebody who's reading that would be interested in storm windows as such. All right, tips for impact windows in Florida. Sorry, I'm highlighting.
You probably want to do the cost of impact windows
Mm-hmm.
at some point.
I would probably do the FAQs too. Because somebody who's likely to read a tips article might be looking for some random answers to random things, maybe. All right, and the cost article.
FAQ, because it might cover things like what would impact cost,
Mm-hmm.
or like things to look out for when buying them, maybe.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then the best impact window company. So we're at our threshold, in my opinion, for the FAQ page, so we can't link that anymore. What else? So we're on this one, but what are these? What do
I would do cost of
Yep.
impact windows.
I would too. And then did we do tips? We haven't interlinked tips yet. We also haven't interlinked. So that one could be good for tips. And then we didn't interlink the this one. No, wait. Hurricanes. Right. So that's that. It has that link to it. Where's the storm windows one? Yeah. So this is, so we should reciprocally link those to each other, right? Okay. So that's a good example of like, take an extra 10 minutes when you have the next time you have an editorial that you're putting together and think about, or, you know, topic cluster specifically in this case, and think about actually planning what's linked to each other. Because then that's going to also create a little bit of a creative constraint for any writer who gets a little link happy, to Lindsay's point, and goes into stuff mode, which we don't want. The last thing I want to show you is how you actually look up link coverage. So, you know, to Lindsay's point, the manual effort of like going page by page by page, God have mercy, right? So one of the quick ways to find out link coverage for a website is to go into Google Search Console, and you go down here to links. And what that's going to do is give you a link coverage report. So what this is going to tell us is, here are our top linked pages, and we can go into more to see all the data. Here's the top linking sites, and here's the top linking text. So apparently we're doing this plotting versus pantsing one a lot, Angela.
That was me. I
That
loved it.
became a very popular one to link. I'll tell Emma to lay off that one. So this is telling us the either actual text or the origin point of the text that we're linking the most. So like we use get in touch a lot, contact us today. So it might be good for us to revisit this, right? So if you have never looked at your anchor link text and figured out, we have a lot of backlinks. So that's, I assure you, we did not buy them, but that's kind of what it is. SEO professionals, read more, but it maybe we have too many generic ones, right? So this would be a really good spot check. If you don't really monitor this in your company yet, like maybe do that, right? Figure out what sites you're linking to and from, right? And then figure out what your anchor link text is. Most of this is going to be, so like top linked pages is probably, that's going to still show external. Hold on. This is internal, right? Yeah, this is internal. So we have 4,100 internal links. Maybe we go a little overboard. But we also have a lot of blogs. So point being, Google Search Console, you're on your main screen, make sure you're in the right property, and you go way down to this little icon right here that says links, and that's going to give you all this data. So that'll kind of help you monitor and check and see like what kind of anchor link text are we using? How many, you know, what pages are we favoring, that kind of thing, and just kind of help you double check whether or not you're implementing the right strategy. Okay, we did it. Any questions?
Yeah, I do have a couple questions. Is there any logic behind like not linking to a particular page. As an example, I had a client who didn't want me to link to product pages. I didn't really understand why. I just kind of rolled with it. But they might not, that might just be an arbitrary decision on their part.
I mean, I could see not wanting to link too much, like to not be spammy, but it stands to reason that if somebody's reading about a solution, the most natural next step would be to put them towards your product page. I guess it would depend. Maybe they have a different funnel. So maybe they want to drive to a landing page with like a download or something.
And then the other question, is there any disadvantage to using the same anchor link text other than it being kind of lazy?
I mean, Google says very clearly that it wants you to be creative. So in this like good, bad, it says it wants you to be descriptive. So I guess as long as it's descriptive, repetition doesn't matter too much, but like I wouldn't use the exact same anchor link text often.
Yeah.
Because too, you have to think like you're only going to be able to do that if you're driving them to the same page all the time. So the goal would be to drive people to content that's going to support what they're already investigating. And you should have a variety of options for that. So maybe on a very small site, you might not have a choice because what you're sending them to is just the same thing over and over again. I'd say I don't know that there's any definitive proof that you would be penalized for it, but I don't know that it's particularly best practice.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I avoid it. I had the accounting client, like every one of their blogs is outsourced accountant. What does an outsourced accountant do? Outsourced accountant services.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to be like, oh, I've used that keyword a dozen times in this article. Why don't I just link to all those? But it's like, it seems kind of lazy just using the same anchor link text. So I avoid it, but I wasn't really sure if there was a reason as to why.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, hopefully this was helpful. Next week, we're going to talk about external links, which will be good because a lot of people are like, why do I want to link to get people off my website? And I'll explain to you why. So thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. And if you need anything, let me know.